Welcome to Developing the Leader Within podcast, the podcast that brings you leadership insights from the brightest minds shaping our world. Join us as we dive into conversation with trailblazers, innovators, and change makers, spanning every corner of the globe. Get ready to explore new perspectives, gain actionable insights, and become the leader the world needs today. Unleash your potential. Tune into Developing the Leader Within podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Let's embark on this transformative journey together. Developing the Leader Within podcast, leading beyond limits.
Welcome back, everyone. If you haven't subscribed, please do so right now, as it will help us getting our show to others and help us get to our next milestone. Today, we are speaking with Kassi Kincaid. Kassi is the founder of Book Days, an international children's literacy program. She is a thought leader in creativity dedicated to helping individuals discover and leverage their creative potential for meaningful impact. She has a bold vision of reaching all 50 states, 400 Title I schools, and getting 160,000 books into young hands and more. And Kassi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Enrique. This is such a pleasure to be here.
And we're happy to have you, folks. We will be speaking about unlocking creative potential, leading with purpose and innovation in 2025. And Kassi, being January, everybody's trying to think about how to be relevant, and creativity is part of that. But before we get into all of that great conversations, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, Enrique, I am an unexpected entrepreneur. I graduated with my business degree, went straight to work for the family business, which was a preschool. And about a year in, I felt like I needed a creative outlet. And so I realized I really loved children's books, being around kids every day. I loved kids, loved children's books. And so I started pairing children's books with experiences. And little did I know that would evolve into a program called Book Days, all about inspiring a love of reading in kids. But then it would grow from that into an international program.
And that's wonderful. I love the vision. I love the mark, the goals. I love that it's centered around our future leaders, talking about leadership and all the things that we have in store for all those that are coming up. And that is a focal point that we seldom see outside of just the school programs. And it's so nice to see you driving that endeavor and talking about leaders. How can leaders in this year foster an environment where creativity thrives, enabling teams to generate innovative solutions to emerging challenges?
The first thing I would say to leaders as far as creativity is that you have to be open to the creative ideas of the people you're leading. So many times, either they do knowing or without knowing it, depending on the type of leaders they are, can stifle it. And sometimes it's because they're kind of hovering leaders, if you will, hovering over their staff, not necessarily making sure things get done, because that's an important responsibility of leaders, but sometimes it can go too much and you really constrain the people under you from even just expressing them, hearing them out. I had a friend who was a teacher, a preschool teacher, and the owner of the school gave responsibilities to her, but then was always like critiquing it, always kind of like bottlenecking her creative ideas when it came to like inside the parameters of what she was given to do. And so just seeing that from like an up close perspective, that is like the number one detriment of leaders, I believe, when it's not so much the ideas of people, it's giving them the reign to do it. And I'm so thankful. One of the things I talk about in my upcoming book that's launching in the end of January, January 30th, is I had that. And my mom was actually my boss when I worked for her, and she gave me the reign and the latitude to discover really my creative ideas. And she let me have reign in that capacity. And I will always be grateful for that, because that, Enrique, led to an international program and inspiring kids to read all over the world. And so it really does start there. Like, not even getting into the ideas, just giving an appropriate amount of latitude. And you never know when that is literally going to become like $1 million idea, or rally the whole staff together. You never know what kind of nuggets are there. So it's really all about the latitude.
Absolutely. And leaders are responsible for their environment and
Mhm.
for how they facilitate the growth of their people. Most of the times, leaders won't ask, hey, who here has a thought on so and so or this particular project that we have coming up? Does anybody have experience? Have you seen better ways of going about it than the ones we already have outlined for you? And imagine if leaders came to a group in every situation in that capacity, how much faster, how much more efficient we be in
Yeah.
terms of getting to the goals that we want without cutting people, without destroying their dreams, without kind of stomping on their ability to help us. It's one of those challenges that leaders face on a constant, but the pain is really on the team, right? So thank you for
Exactly.
sharing that. Now, creativity is one of those things that, as the creation of AI,
Mhm.
has a lot of people kind of questioning how much is going to be taken over. But with AI and other advanced technologies shaping the way we work,
Mhm.
how can leaders effectively integrate these tools to enhance creative potential without stifling human ingenuity?
I love AI because it's like your own personal assistant. I mean, Enrique, I think, man, back to my college days, I'm like, where was this in college? I mean, things that took me way longer, papers just to get the wording right, the everything. I mean, AI can do in like 2 seconds by just telling it what you need. And I would say it's even more of an advantage because you take your ideas as a leader, the ideas of the people under you, your colleagues, and then you put it into AI to maybe draw out things that maybe you haven't even thought about. And that's what I do in my own personal life. I mean, whether it's like writing copyright or script for like my website, working on my book, it's not give me the creative ideas. It's help me form this. I have this idea, help me work with this in whatever capacity I am. And that's the best way that I've found to use it. It's like the best virtual assistant, whatever you want to call, but it's really to add more value to the thoughts and feelings that you already have. So that's what I would say to leaders. It's like the best enhancement you can have. Take, because nobody can really, I don't think, outmatch human thought, emotions to a certain capacity. And so you take that, you put it into AI, and you have just that much more leverage, creativity, and help with whatever you're working on.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it's a tool, it's an advantage. It is something that is there to help us kind of get to a place faster. You're not saying give me the thoughts.
Mhm.
It's not gonna do that. You're gonna give the thoughts. You're gonna give the things that you think are a viable solution or maybe a way forward, and then
Mhm.
it'll give you some suggestions that you may have not thought of. So thank you for that. And the fear of technology shouldn't drive a leader. The leader should drive where that technology is going to help them. It's
Mhm.
a great point. Now, how can leaders ensure that creativity within their organizations is aligned with a meaningful mission? You have one. I kind of spouted that off in the beginning, but a meaningful mission or purpose that drives long term impact.
So I can approach this two different ways. So I think when people think of meaningful impact, they think of, oh, well, either like the work we do. So whether you're a realtor, whether you're in finance, whether you're whatever vein you're in, medical, or the company I work for has a philanthropy program. Like, just for example, like Bombas, the socks, like every pair, sold is a pair given, that kind of thing. Some companies, they don't have necessarily that as one of their focal points. So I'll address maybe the not so obvious one first, is that when it comes to creativity, I always tell people that creativity is the constant drive to be better, to better the world. So, whatever that looks like, everybody thinks of creativity as it has to be a mega impact. It has to be an international program. It has to be a nonprofit. It has to be this massive scale. And it really comes down to doing your best job for the people you serve. I was doing a workshop in New York for a healthcare company organization, and we had people from all different backgrounds in the training. There was 40 leaders in that training, everybody from I think the NICU to like technology, radiology, like a lot of different jobs. And I was talking with one of the tech people, and I think she did some kind of screening, and she said after the breakout sessions, I think I'm gonna put up some art on the walls for something enjoyable for the people having screenings done. And it can be something as simple as that, because it's not about changing the world, it's about changing your world. And how can we do things better to better the literal people that you serve in your big organization? And then that will leak out into the organization, and who knows where it'll go from there. So meaningful impact, it starts with people really believing in their job and really believing that it matters in the scope of the organization and the world at large. And so meaningful impact really happens there. It's at the core of believing in what you do. If you're a realtor, then how can you sell houses in the best possible way? Not to be better than your competitors, which I mean, creativity can get you there, but that shouldn't be like the sole drive to do that. How can, I be different and serve in a different capacity? So, and sometimes, yes, things are at the big level. I had no idea that my program, it was literally serving a handful of kids and would 6 7 years later be impacting the world. And so my speaking and doing keynotes and workshops and all over the country, I had no idea that my story would be such an impact to professionals that are looking to leverage um, creativity in their lives and in their personal and professional lives. So it can be at both levels, but I really want to highlight the smaller one because it doesn't have to be you have to conquer the world to make an impact. Wherever you're doing, whoever you're serving, that is your impact.
Absolutely. I think of it and liken it sometimes to a vehicle, right? You can have a vehicle, you have the motor, and the motor's going good, but have one of your joints be off on your wheel. And it doesn't matter if you have a, 800 horsepower engine, your your body is going to be shaken because that is off. And so if you start small and concentrate on that, it will have a trickle effect on the long term and eventually, could lead to some international type of impact. But if not, hey, you're doing your piece and you're doing it well, and we're all grateful for it. Now, when you talk about strategies, you talk about bringing in an environment as a leader to your people where they can thrive and think freely and also express those, because one thing is to tell somebody, hey, you got the flexibility to be creative, but don't share it. Right. And
No.
so what strategies can leaders use to overcome resistance to creative thinking, especially in traditionally structured or risk adverse industry, because there are some?
Yes, that's a great question. So creativity can be in any field. I know that there are some that, I mean, you have to be a little bit more careful maybe than others, finance or, whatever it is. You have to dot your I's and cross your T's. Um, I would say strategies for leaders. Well, one of the biggest ones is just fail forward. And when we talk about failure, it's like, oh my word, that's not what we want to do. Let's not go there. But the real truth about creativity is that sometimes it'll work out. Sometimes it's not going to work out or not get to the result you want. The best creative ideas, I believe, are the ones that you really don't have a I'm shooting for this in the long run. For example, my story, I never was like, oh, one day I didn't wake up, be like, oh, one day I want to start a program and two, it's going to reach this capacity. That was never it. I was just happy bringing the joy of reading to kids like month by month. We would have these events. And that's all I was worried about. And that's all I was focused on. I wasn't focused on success. I wasn't focused on, of course, in the business world, of course, those are important things to talk about. And how is creativity making our people better, making our organization better, our work better, eventually down to the bottom dollar, right? Um, and so it's giving that rein and like kind of what we talked about. Have the idea, you have to pursue the idea, whatever that looks like. But sometimes you're going to be disappointed. And I know we don't like to talk about disappointment, but it's literally one of the foundations. If you're going to be creative, you have to have a level of grit in there. Whether it's I want to pursue this client, I think this would be a great idea, really being able to have limitless possibilities. It's getting back to that inner child and seeing what's possible. So obviously, I would say give your colleagues the rein, inspire them, but then also, this is real life, and everything that you shoot for, you're not going to get. And so it's overcoming that. But then this is kind of a piece that people are like, where does this fit in creativity? It's really valuing people as people. And I saw this with my mom, and not just because she's my mom as my boss back in the day, but I always loved about her being a boss is that she really just valued people and gave them time, personal time when they needed to be out for this or had, multiple days for a special family event. She was always interested in giving people what they needed as employees. And that is the fourth step to creativity is rest. Your people have to be rested in order for them to come back with just creativity off the charts. And studies have shown this. People that take vacations are more creative. People that even walk like 15 minutes a day are more creative. And so that's the other piece I would say. You have to give them the reins for them to be creative. Let them pursue it, help them overcome the disappointment, and then be sure that they are resting, they're getting everything that they need from you in that capacity. And not just like, oh yes, I can take my company time off, but as a leader, hey, enjoy that vacation. It's hard earned. Hey, if you had a family member pass away, take as much time as you need. Those kinds of things are very important to creativity. And it kind of seems like a random off note, but the more people are rested and rejuvenated and feel heard and seen by you as a leader, your company is going to highly benefit from that.
I agree. Now, there are some industries, i.e., NASA, that you just cannot be. coming into the office to be creative, right? There are very distinct, scientifically proven steps that you have to go through. But, having NASA out of the out of the picture, this is a normal way of ensuring as a leader that you are creating those environments, even in a risk adverse type of environment. See what areas you can influence as a leader to keep that going for your people. Now, diverse perspective, when we say, hey, who has an idea? Right? It may not be the greatest thing you want to hear, but everybody should be able to share. It's one thing to ask for ideas and ask for creativity to flow. It's going to come at you, right? So you got to be ready for it as well as a leader. So, how can leaders harness diverse perspectives and interdisciplinary collaboration to unlock creative potential and achieve more meaningful outcomes this year and beyond?
So when you talk about diverse voices too, I mean, really, when you think about it, everyone has a different voice. It has nothing to do background, history. So yeah, it just because you are human and you are you, no one else is you. So that just creates immediately a whole array of diverse perspectives. So I always like to talk about it. It's like a thumbprint. Everyone has a thumbprint, and science shows that no two people have the same thumbprint. So you, only you, have your creativity and a unique impact on the world. And so when you start thinking of it like that, I totally agree that it's one thing to ask, like, hey, everyone, we just need a lot of ideas. We're doing this project. How can we do this better? Yes, 100% agree that all those ideas are not going to be viable creative ideas. But it's very important that people feel like their ideas matter and their ideas are going to be heard of. Not that they're going to take action on them or decide on them, but they're going to be considered. And that's the main thing when it comes to leaders. Like I really am, not just I'm asking for it and then like don't even look at them and we're going with like what the CEO has to say. Um, so in that perspective, one of the things I love about creativity is the collaborative nature of creativity. And especially when you get people in a room, and I've seen this, especially in workshops, is when this section, this sector over here, and this sector over here, but then we have time to share and like, oh, you have that would be great for team building in my team. And we might not talk a lot, but there's a lot of good ideas to share. And sometimes it's even, hey, I have an idea, and then somebody else piggybacks off it. And they're like, oh, yeah. And they piggyback off it, and that's an even better idea. And so allowing everyone an opportunity, I think, allows automatic collaboration because it's like one big melting pot. Everyone put one ingredient in, and we'll see what we can come up with. I think it's super important too in the beginning phase of creativity, just get the ideas out. And where a lot of not only leaders, but people get stumped is that here's a bunch of ideas. And then I like to call it there's two different types of people. There's realists, which I think if I say pessimist, that's a little bit negative. So I say realists, and there's optimists. And I will be the first to admit I'm a realist in that somebody throws an idea out and I immediately go to all the ideas why it's not a good idea or it's not going to work out. And then you have the optimists that are just like, oh, basically like life's a party, we can do anything, like all the stuff. So you have to really meet in the middle. And they should have made a reality show of my sister was my boss under my mom when I was a preschool administrator, and it was comical, Enrique, what our interactions look like because she was the big dreamer. Let's do this for the school. Let's have this. Let's make this better. And I'm back here as the administrator being like, we have limited budget, we have limited staffing, we have limited resources. How are we going to make that happen? And so she would get upset with me because I was being kind of like a Debbie Downer. Not that I didn't want to do better events, do things better, more creative ideas, not the way things have always been done, but you have to come somewhere in the middle. I was like, don't kill the idea when it's like barely out of someone's mouth or on the table. Actually, don't kill it just yet. Like, that's not the time to judge ideas. We need to get all the ideas out. Then we can go back and be like, and not necessarily a yes or no. And I think two people get stuck there. And it's just black, white, yes, no. And we're just like tossing out ideas left and right. And it's like, maybe that's not quite the best idea, but if we tweak it 5%, there could really be something there. And so not seeing it necessary as black and white, but just evaluating it, potentially tweaking it to be something better. So whether you're a realist or an optimist, and I think people listening to this can like automatically identify what personality type they are, and it's to meet in the middle. Don't shoot down ideas right off the bat, but then as an optimist, you have to see a little bit of the realist perspective. So each one needs a little bit more optimist or like reality. Neither is good or bad. Like they're both great in and of themselves, but I think that's one of the things is to for that collaboration, you can't be just shooting down like the person next to you because they're a realist. And it's all about kind of working together in that capacity.
Yes, and it's important for leaders to understand that while you're harnessing these diverse perspectives, jot them down because timing is also one of those contributing factors of the effectiveness of an idea. Maybe it's just not the right time to implement that idea, but if you have it written down, you can always go back. Hey, Sally has said, and this is the best time to let's pull that out and still give meaningful outcomes to your team. And also, oh, by the way, Sally got her day at court, right? she, she was able to come in and bring something good to the team, something positive without, automatically shooting things down. I've been in situations where I have an idea. Okay, yeah. How about if we and you're like, she hasn't even finished. Can we give them a break at least to express themselves? So yeah, very funny, and I love the dynamic between you and your sister there. It's always something funny to watch. But having shared all of that, I hope that the listener and the viewer has gotten a new perspective on how to implement and bring in creativity for their teams. But I know that you have a lot going on locally, regionally, nationally, internationally. So, what do you have coming up? And where can the viewer, listener follow or support you?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things that is in the wings right now is our Book Day National Tour that we are looking to launch in September of 2025. This will be a 5-year initiative, all 50 states, 400 Title I schools, and giving away a copy of the book, Pete the Cat and His Four Groovy Buttons, to every pre-K through third kid at those schools in every state. And this tour is all about combating the illiteracy crisis in America. America is the #1 nation in the world. We lead the world in illiteracy. And so this is a way to try and help combat that across all 50 states. I have seen so much success here in Central Texas. We have reached over 20,000 kids just in 5 school districts in Central Texas, in about 70 Title I schools in this area. And so just seeing the amazing response that we've had, I just knew it was meant for the rest of the nation. And so we are hopefully going to be kicking that off. If you would love to see the promo for that, if you'd like to donate to that, like I said, it's going to be a 5-year cause. If you know anybody, any company, any individual, any philanthropist, everyone knows someone. We have a video that uh, you can share on our website, bookdays.org. It's right there, pop up first thing. And I would love to hear from you. I am super passionate not only about children's books and combating illiteracy around the world, but I'm super passionate about creativity as well. In our talk today, seeing how that has come alive in my life and made an impact, but that it can make an impact in adults' lives as well. And it's not just something just for children and children's books. You have creativity inside of you, and it just needs to be awakened. And so I have a whole speaker platform, KassiKincaid.com, and I have a podcast as well. And kind of the big thing on the block in that perspective is the book. The Edge of Creativity is coming out January 30th, 2025, and you can find it on Amazon. And that goes into great detail of my story. I only get to share a portion of it here on podcasts, the keynote workshop, but this is the real in the trenches view of my story up to this point. Enrique, I feel like another book is in the wings, but it'll probably be after this national tour. So yes, just to encourage you and to share these pillars that we talked about too today. It's not just about hearing my story, but how you can apply it to your lives and these pillars of creativity. So I would love to give away a copy of the book. So either a DM Enrique or me on Instagram, Kassi_Kincaid, and tell us the top 3 things that you loved about this podcast episode. So we would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And that's a great benefit. Thank you for offering that. I know that we will be supporting by sharing all the information, all the links for you to be able to help and push this endeavor. It's a wonderful goal. It is sad to hear that we are number one in illiteracy. Folks, if that doesn't motivate you enough to get behind this project, it's just definitely one thing that's shocking. But hey, a book may be in your hand. So get those 3 things that you learned from all of this conversation. And I tell you that it's amazing how one thing that we do well can trickle to impact the nation, right? And beyond. So folks, we'll have all those links in the video so that you can get a hold of the project. Now, today's episode is sponsored by the Global Trends magazine, the Outlier Project, Fantail Services, Southern Sweet and Sassy Coffee, Ascend Meditations, and Chop AI. And if you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know by leaving a comment. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that we can add to our show. So if you know someone or have a topic that you would like featured on the podcast or want to sponsor our show, we'd love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.